Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Zero Lab. My name is Max, and I'm joined by my friend Tom. And today we are going to talk about a few things, including the standard rotation, some decks in the online tournament sphere that have been doing well, a couple new cards released from our Battle Partners set. Uh, yeah, so let's get into it.
Yeah, so we have standard. First of all, we have standard format rotation announced this week for 2025. It was kind of on the date we all sort of expected, but it is the April 11th will be when standard is rotating, which is when we have our Atlanta regionals. So that's 2 weeks after our Journey Together set comes out. So that makes sense. That's kind of what everyone was sort of expecting at this point.
Yeah, I think for me, the fact that Atlanta will be the first tournament in the rotation, that's a must-hit tournament for me. I think some of these tournaments, the tournaments with that line up with rotation, are some of the most fun tournaments to prepare for.
Yeah, I agree. I love rotation. I think it any deck that's like currently around that stays around after rotation, you have to sort of find new ways to build it, decide whether it's still good. Um, and it often gives legs to cards that like were revealed and seemed good, but just like couldn't hold up to what was currently good. Things like Lugia, Regidrago, are going to be gone, and so there's probably some decks that just were not able to survive in the format because of such strong decks existing. That maybe might have some legs now. So it makes you revisit old cards. It makes you revisit how you were building current decks and how they have to change going forward. And I think it leads to a lot of creativity in deck building that can be rewarded at the first tournament of that standard format rotation.
Yeah, totally. Something like Single Strike Lugia. That's a deck that like I mean, not very good at all pre-rotation, and then when D Block rotated and Lugia lost all the powerful cards like Aurora Energy, something like Tyranitar V was just a broken card, which was never saw any play before rotation. So I think it's a lot of fun to
Mm-hmm.
see underused cards like pop out into the meta.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, obviously we have Badu coming out, which is sort of the hopefully people think the card that will sort of slow down the format. But rotation, I think, will naturally do that because a lot of these cards that really turbo through decks are going to be lost to rotation. So the turbo decks like Raging Bolt and Moon lose Radiant Greninja and Pokestop and Trekking Shoes and all those things that make these turbo decks just go super fast. Um, and then other decks like Charizard lose Force Seal Stone and Rotom and Luminion. So those are naturally just going to like slow down the format to a point where maybe some slower decks or different decks might be able to do well. Um, and then obviously Regidrago, the best deck in format, is going to be gone as well.
Yeah, I really got back into this game seriously with D Block, and so I've been through two rotations now, like in my time playing this
Mm-hmm.
game as a master. And it really does feel like that this losing F block is going to be the most impactful rotation that I've been a part of so far. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I would say the last rotation would have been that rotation because we lost Battle VIP Pass, but they gave us Buddy Buddy Poffin right away. If they hadn't given us Buddy Buddy Poffin, I mean, we were talking about things like Gather the Crew Basculin.
Yeah.
Like, I think the format would have looked a lot different without Buddy Buddy Poffin. And then with later on in the format, when we got things like Regidrago, like those decks that were going crazy without needing Buddy Buddy Poffin, if we hadn't had Buddy Buddy Poffin, this format might have just been really horrendous. So thankfully they gave us
Yeah.
Buddy Buddy Poffin, but I do think that last rotation would have been even more impactful without Buddy Poffin. But this rotation, losing all the Radiance, losing all the V stars, um, I think really is like the biggest one we've had since pre-COVID, probably at least.
Yeah, lots of changes to engines, lots of changes to cards that see play in a lot of decks. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to taking out all the F block cards out of my playable box and starting fresh.
Yeah, for sure. What is going to be? Do you have? I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have a most missed and least missed card that you will miss from F block?
Yeah, I think I will definitely miss. I mean, I'm gonna miss Gudra. I haven't been
Yeah.
playing it, but that is a card that holds a special spot in my heart. So seeing that and the Lost Box stuff go, I will miss that stuff. I really like the Lost Box engine
Hmm.
in general. Uh, as for cards, I will not be sad to see go. I'm gonna have to say the Reggie Drago stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, it's just been so good for so long, which is so funny to think about. When Silver Tempest first came out, and Reggie Drago was just so mid, but yeah, it's
Hmm.
really taken over the meta. So I'll be happy to see that go, and it'll make some room for other decks to shine.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
I
about you?
think most missed card for me, as a Qian Pao favorite last season, I think Irida, or Radiant Greninja. Both of those cards, like that deck's really gonna miss. I mean, the deck is unplayable without Irida, I think. And it loses half the deck really to rotation. But Irida is sort of that thing that made those water decks work. I think I'll give a special shout out to Palkia V Star. I think that was one of my favorite V Stars. Post the time when it was like really, really oppressive with the Inteleon line, I think it was one of those V Stars that just was really cool, efficient attacker that just never really saw its potential fulfilled after that rotation where it lost the Inteleon line. And I think I wish we had lived in a format where like Palkia Area Zero would have been a little bit better deck. It just wasn't quite good enough in this format, so I'll miss that. Um, I don't want to copy you, so I'm not going to say I won't miss Reggie Drago. So I'm going to say Lugia. Um,
I almost
and the
said
other
that.
reason I'm going to say I don't miss Lugia is one, just like the nightmare days of when Lugia was the best when it first came out. That was a rough format. And nowadays, I won't miss Lugia because I won't miss having to question whether I should play Lugia and then playing a bunch of hands with Lugia and feeling like the deck's a total brick and being like, it's supposed to be good, but it just doesn't feel good.
I feel like every format you run the same cycle where you're like, man, like I don't like these other decks. Like Lugia seems like a good play, and then you play some Lugia, and you're like, man, I don't really want to play Lugia.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Chinchino is too good of an attacker to like ever say that the deck's bad, but
Yeah,
getting that turn two double Archeops isn't always the easiest thing.
yeah, it'll be nice to not even have the possibility anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah. But along with rotation announcement, we did get the official reveal of the Journey Together set. So we get to see the pack arts and everything, the ETBs and all that. Uh, Interesting thing is a little bit of a change to the design of the booster boxes, just like shape wise, which is always fun. But I believe they're also coming with box toppers again. I don't recall what the promo is. Maybe you do. I think it's the Enz Reshiram special art will
Yeah,
be the promo included with the booster boxes. So that's a cool change.
yeah. Something that I noticed when the pre-releases for this dropped, man, people are hyped for this. I mean, it's probably mostly collectors.
Hmm.
I'm sure competitive players are obviously very excited too, but collectors are going crazy for the set. I've been seeing listings for people's pre-orders on eBay for like 500, 600,
Yeah,
$700. It is insane.
I was
So
I
yeah,
was honestly really surprised by that. Maybe
yeah,
I
me
shouldn't have
too.
been, but like I get that like the gym leader sets were really cool, like back in like the early days, like after base set, and so this is sort of reminiscent of that. But I mean, we don't have like a big Charizard or anything in this set. Like we don't have anything that like should be that collector crazy, except maybe a Lily something. But even Lily is not like that huge of a collector draw compared to like Gen One sort of stuff. So I was kind of surprised that this went so crazy.
Yeah, for sure. So could be tricky to get your hands on some stuff
Hmm.
early, but I'm sure they'll print a ton of this set.
Yeah. And then we have the pack arts. It's each of the trainers that we know are in the set with their main Pokemon EX. We've got the Lily or the Lily Iono with their Belly Bolt, Lily Clefairy, N with his Zoroark, and then Hop with the Zacian. Funny thing is, we did have Marnie's Grimmsnarl revealed at Worlds, and we haven't seen any other Marnie's Pokemon yet revealed from the set. So maybe we're gonna see like a big archetype potentially that we didn't even know was going to be included in the set once the full set's revealed. But they haven't really shown us much of that Marnie stuff since that one card reveal.
my understanding is that the Marnie stuff is going to be in our next set after Journey Together.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure like if it's gonna be like I think there was something revealed with the Stevens like
Mm.
Metagross, like
Hmm.
that stuff's gonna be together in the next set, and maybe like that'll combine with the Team Rocket stuff into
Okay.
our like next set. I think it's gonna be something like that.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. But we certainly know, or we have ideas. I don't have like screenshots right here, but there's more trainers Pokemon to come in the set because in like a trailer that dropped, we saw a Kling with N. So we assume there's an N's Kling in the set that we haven't seen yet. And then there was like a Lily's Ribombee or something that was like shown in the trailer with all the other Lily's Pokemon. So the assumption is we're going to have cards of Lily's Ribombee and N's Kling as well that are just some trainer Pokemon that we haven't seen revealed yet. So those are something we should see later this week, right? The set comes out pretty soon.
Yeah, we should be seeing stuff really soon. And when it does drop, be sure to check back into the Zero Lab. We'll definitely be
Yeah,
making another video about that stuff.
for sure. They revealed the ETB. It's always kind of fun to see the new ETB art. They went with N and Zoroark, which makes total sense. That's going to be probably the most popular guy out of the set. And then what comes with it, the sleeves and a Zorua alternate art promo. So that's all pretty cool. Um, and then just the rest of the products, the 3-pack blisters, the check lane blisters, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, nothing too crazy for the rest of that, but cool to see the set revealed. And I guess we'll have pre-release here in about, I don't know, like, well, 2 months actually. That's crazy. um,
Still a little ways off.
yeah, yeah. However, we do have a couple more card reveals that came throughout the week from Battle Partners, which is what our Journey Together set will be made out of. We have the Tyranitar here, which had some people going on Twitter. I think there was a few people who were like really thinking this was going to be broken. And then a bunch of people said, no, this is not any good. We'll see where we land on this. So Tyranitar has 190 HP, stage 2 dark type Pokemon with the ability Daunting Gaze. While this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent can't play any item cards from their hand. And then Crackling Stomp for a dark and a colorless energy does 150 damage and discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. What are your thoughts on Tyranitar?
Yeah, I think with any time there's a stage 2 Pokemon, it has to be really, really strong to, I think, really make an impact on the meta. But that being said, this is like item lock is a pretty strong effect, and having it on like an ability, like a passive ability where you just need to have Tyranitar in the active, I think that could be okay. Uh, you are able to use this with counter gain, so like you
Mm-hmm.
could use the crackling stomp for an attachment and counter gain. Additionally, I think something that maybe could be cool is like using it in maybe like a hit and run style deck. If we got a really good hit and run style attacker, um, you could pair the hit and run attacker with Tyranitar, and there's a card from our 151 set, the big air balloon that gives free retreat to stage twos.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do something like you do a hit and run into the Tyranitar, and now they're item locked. Something like that could be okay, but I think I would be it would need a lot more support to be like a really strong card in the meta.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, item lock's really good. We have Badoo, so you could technically say, well, I'm going to Badoo, and then once I've set up Tyranitar, I use the Tyranitar. Item lock in combination with Mill, like it just like seems like it's almost there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it,
yeah,
like being a stage 2 and all that, and being able to be bossed around to turn off the effect of the ability and still be able to play your item cards makes it feel like it's just not going to be quite good, but it feels like there's almost something there.
yeah. Since Iron Bundle is in the format and that's such a splashable card in so many
Mm-hmm.
decks, I feel like that will be a real challenge for Tyranitar to have to deal with. Is that like if Tyranitar ever gets really popular, well now everyone's going to start
Yeah,
including bundles in
yeah.
their list. So
But then you
I
just
think
throw,
it's just not. Yeah.
you play Iron Thorns, and then you just like, oh, you can't use abilities now. Like, okay, bundle me, but now your abilities are shut off. I guess they just wait to bundle till they've used their abilities, huh?
Yeah.
Sadly. But yeah, Tyranitar, close to good, but just not quite there, like most Tyranitar cards. But we did get Ludicolo revealed. Another stage 2, water type, 140 HP, with the Vital Samba ability. Each of your Pokemon in play gets plus 40 HP, and this ability doesn't stack, but interesting ability on, um, unfortunately on a stage 2, so probably not good enough. But you have a 370 HP Charizard. You have a 320 HP Pidgeot. Those sorts of things. Like, is plus 40 enough? Like, if you're one-shotting a Charizard, you're probably most of the time able to hit 370 anyway. Like, those sorts of things. Like, does that plus 40 matter? And plus, it's on a stage 2. Those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I think they could have allowed this effect to stack, and I still would say it's just not quite good enough. I don't know. There maybe is there something there with like Kingdra EX that has like an interesting attack where you could like throw like Ludicolo right onto the bench with the
Mhm.
attack, and now your Kingdra's tanky in the active spot. But I think yeah, it's just not really like a crazy strong ability. You'd have to have a really specific card that would want more HP for
Yeah,
it to be good, I
yeah,
guess.
for sure. And then we did have another big batch of cards revealed. We got some new fire guys. Magmortar has the Magma Surge ability. During Pokemon checkup, put 3 more damage counters on your opponent's burned Pokemon. And that's supposed to pair with this new Volcanion EX that says once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may make your opponent's active Pokemon burned. So, initially people read this Volcanion as it didn't have to be in the active spot and thought it was like really, really good. Now it has to be in the active spot. It's got 3 retreat cost. Compare it with Latias EX to give it free retreat cost, but maybe not quite as good as initially thought.
I actually think that the Volcanion EX is really good. Um, I think that like in some decks, like yeah, like Miraidon, something
Mm-hmm.
like that, that hits 220 really easily. Having a modifier to do 20 more damage and be able to knock out things like Raging Bolt
Mm-hmm.
could be pretty strong. I think yeah, it's not. It's like a lot of decks want to play Latias already. So like in scenarios where like a plus 20 modifier like gets you to like an
Mm-hmm.
important KO in some matchups, I think the Volcanion's good. I think it's kind of a specific card, but I think in those situations, I think it's could be really strong. I think it'll definitely see play.
Yeah, for sure. It's like um people kind of my initial look at this was like you pair this sort of like how the cloth deck is built right now with like Brute Bonnet and Petulant, and you poison and burn, and then like have the Magmortars plus Petulant. Like you could do some pretty crazy damage just by not even attacking at all,
Yeah,
just from status conditions, which is kind of funny. Because then Fez obviously doesn't activate, and Fez is sort of a big part of the current format and probably going to be a big part of the next format as well.
yeah, definitely.
We also got a Wailord revealed, which has 240 HP as a one prizer, which is a big dude. 4 colorless energy, has Hydro Pump, and it does 10 damage, plus 50 more damage for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. So, gonna pair this with something like Baxcalibur, do some big damage on a one prizer. Fairly interesting, but if next format isn't like 10 times slower than the current format, I don't see this being much of a card.
Why don't we throw the Ludicolo on the bench? Put a Lux Cape on that guy. That's 380 right there.
There it is.
Pretty big, yeah.
um, fun special art here though on the Wailord. He's a big guy.
That is a pretty sweet art. I like it.
We also got the Ends Purloin. I forgot about this when we were talking about the trainers Pokemon. Ends Purloin revealed, so I assume we're gonna see an Ends whatever you call it. What's the that's the Purloin, I believe.
Leopard, we're
Yeah,
actually not getting an Ends Leopard, at least not in this set. According
really.
to according to Twan, this I think this is the set number is 59 and 60 is like the Zoro, I think.
Okay. Well, what's interesting about this is it's kind of like a control attacker. So a lot of people have been talking about End Zoroark, and we had previously had Zoroark GX. Control was like a deck, so could End Zoroark sort of rebuild Zoroark control. This is sort of a control attacker. Does 20 damage, and your opponent reveals their hand, and you put a card you find there on the bottom of their deck. Um, which is interesting in a format where we have something like Zerosic. Makes your opponent discard their hand down to 3, then you purloin them. I don't know if there will be enough cards to combine with this to like really make a control deck, but it's interesting that they gave N this type of card.
Yeah, I think something interesting with this card is some synergy that I see right away, or not maybe not synergy, but like something you can do in a Zoroark deck is You could combine it with like something like Pecharunt and Binding Mochi to get that like plus 40 modifier.
Hmm.
So early game, like doing 60 damage and doing a little hand control could be okay, I guess.
Hmm. For sure. Um, and then we have Magearna, which has the ability Auto Heal as long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon. When you attach an energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon, heal 90 damage from that Pokemon. That's a pretty, I mean, that's one of the bigger healing numbers that we've seen in a while. But again, often we're in sort of like these one shot formats where healing 90 um, isn't probably going to save you from a KO if you even were in a world where you weren't being one hit anyway, right? So probably not great.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I feel like this. I don't really see like how this card is like super strong right away, but what the vibes I get from this is like we're gonna look back on this card like several months from now and be like, man, this card was
Yeah.
really underlooked when it first came out.
Dude,
So I think
imagine,
this is something to keep in mind for sure in a lot of decks,
yeah.
or not in a lot of decks, but in some decks.
Imagine this card with Gudra in the format. Man,
Yeah, that's pretty broken. I wonder how it works with the jet energy. Like if you like jet something up to the active, like does it get the heal? I would think so.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, so cool card for sure.
Yeah, and then we got a couple more Hops cards. It's the Corviknight line.
Yeah,
Corviknight has the
speaking of Gudra,
yeah, Corviknight has the shoot through attack. Does 50 damage. This attack also does 50 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So Hop continuing to snipe those bench Pokemon. And then Steel Wing for 150 damage during your opponent's next turn. This Pokemon takes 60 less damage from attacks, which means it has effective 230 HP on a stage 2. I mean, I'm not sure that's enough on a stage 2.
yeah. I mean, I get you can like use reversal, I guess, to power it
Mm-hmm.
up, but man, yeah, like that's just like not even. I was gonna say not even two shotting Charizard EX, but it gets the damage modifiers, I guess.
Yeah.
I think yeah, it seems not that good.
Here's my question. They've given Hop everything so far. Like we're gonna see
Mhm.
down below, they gave Hop VIP pass as well. That is can be used more than just turn 1. I mean, they gave him the choice belt or the choice band that decreases energy cost, but I still don't see how we're getting all these metal energies on like Zacian and stuff. Are they gonna give Hop Metal Saucer back? Like, I don't know. Like,
Hop saucer.
yeah, like I just still don't see how the deck comes together without something like that. To be honest with you,
I don't think they're gonna give him that because they kind of just gave that to N already. So I think
that's true.
it'd be unexpected if they gave it to Hop too. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the big question for Hop is how is it powering up its attackers? It has a lot of support otherwise.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like the Zacian. I just don't think you can power it up over 3 turns. Like that thing's dead. So I don't know. And 120, 30 on the Zacian to me is just like not enough damage on a 2 prizer. So like they either got to give Hop away to power up these metal Pokemon that isn't Arcaludon because I don't see how you're also fitting all this stuff on your bench. Or I just don't really see how Hop is successful. But speaking of Hop, we got Hop's Bag. Search your deck for up to 2 basic Hops Pokemon and put them on your bench. So Hop's VIP pass.
Yeah, that's an extremely good card.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the deck just has almost everything it needs, in my opinion, to be good. It's just like, how are we getting the energy on there? Is just my last question, I think.
Yeah, yeah. A card like this is it's a lot like Techno Radar for the future
Mm-hmm.
decks, where it's just like this super specific ball search, but it's just yeah, it's so good. I think yeah, Hop has a lot of the support it needs to be a good archetype. It's just we're just missing a few pieces, I think.
Mm-hmm. And we got Iris's Fighting Spirit. So it's a supporter card. Discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw cards until you have 6 cards in hand. My immediate reaction to this card was it sucks, and it's never going to see play. But then people started talking about how research is going to rotate, and we think that research and boss are gone. And I guess in a world where that's the case, maybe Iris is good. Next rotation, I know that's a long ways away, but we do technically lose currently research and Iono. And so if those aren't reprinted, I guess this is one of the better draw supporters we have.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think I like the approach that they're starting to take with how they're doing supporters. It really does seem like they're trying to slow the game down like
Mhm.
a little bit. Like it seems like they're trying to lower the power level of supporters a bit, which is a direction I like to see them
Mhm.
go in.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is interesting. Like just theorizing about a world where there's no research and Iono. Like Kofu seems pretty good. Iris seems pretty
Yeah.
good. Um Morty's Conviction. I don't remember what set that came out in, to be honest with you. So that might rotate at the same time as research, but that draws for each benched Pokemon, like on your opponent's side. So like in an Area Zero, if there's like an Area Zero heavy format, that would be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then the final trainer card we have here is Ends Castle, which looks sick in my opinion. I always loved Ends Castle in the games. Black and white are my favorite games, so it's cool to see these black and white cards coming.
Yeah, this
Um,
card needs to have this card needs like a alt art for sure.
yeah, for sure.
That would be cool. Yeah.
But it says each Ends Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's, has no retreat cost. So, um, that's really cool. Obviously, you're playing an end deck where you're gonna have to bench other Ends Pokemon onto your bench so that End Zoroark can attack with them. So you're often gonna start something like Reshiram or Darumaka or Purloin or whatever you have in your deck, and you're gonna want to get into your Zorua. So it's kind of nice to have this just for your treat cost option in the deck. And Zoroark already did have something you already brought up, which is that Petrant option as well to get the Zoroark active, but this is cool as well.
Yeah, could be better than having like a two prizer like liability sitting on your
Mm-hmm.
bench. Um, and yeah, like it's something like this is super important because Ends PP up only goes onto a bench Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So a card like Ends Castle just makes it a lot easier to use that card.
Yeah, for sure. So that is it for revealed cards right now. We can kind of take a look at the future, however, because some new set trademarks came out hinting at Mega Evolutions. Obviously, we have Pokemon Legends ZA coming out at some point, probably this year. Definitely this year, I think. We just don't know a ton about it yet. That's revisiting the Kalos region where Mega Evolution was first introduced. So, hoping that ZA has some stuff to do with Mega Evolutions. And then they would have to bring those back to the card game. So we have these trademarks for new sets called Mega Brave and Mega Symphony, kind of hinting that Mega Evolution is coming back to the card game.
Yeah, I think man, they dropped the trailer for Legends ZA forever ago. What was it at?
I think it
At
was last Pokemon Day. I think it was last February.
yeah, you're right. I think that is when it was, which is forever ago. I mean, we're almost at the next Pokemon game,
Mm-hmm.
so I imagine the next time we hear information on this game will probably be then.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, and then last time in the card game, Mega Evolutions were like EXs that evolved from other EXs, so like Blastoise EX, and then you evolved into Mega Blastoise EX. And if you didn't have the Spirit Link attached, it would end your turn when you evolved into a Mega. I don't know. I would like to see them do it a different way this time around. I'm not sure I would really like that same mechanic back in the game necessarily.
Yeah, the Spirit Links weren't very fun to have to include in your deck. So I know I think when you hear people who've been playing the game a long time talk about like different gimmicks the TCG has had, I think megas are definitely typically at the bottom of their lists. So it'll be good for them
Yeah.
to have a redemption arc.
Yes, which is funny because I feel like Megas is like the top of a lot of people's list in the VGC. I don't know that for sure.
Totally, yeah.
I'm not that tied into the VGC, but I think Mega Evolution is pretty hype for the VGC, and then for the TCG, everyone's like, I don't know. So, would be cool to have them do a little bit better job of it this time around. But that's all the upcoming TCG set news that we have. We thought we'd go over sort of the upcoming tournaments that we have this season. I know there's a few more yet to be revealed, but not a bad time halfway through the season to kind of go over what's coming up. Talk about the rest of the season as we lead up to Worlds. And it's a long road ahead in the Prismatic Evolutions format, sadly.
Sure it is.
Starting, I mean, technically this isn't the Prismatic Evolutions format, but most competitive players are kind of feeling like, okay, that adds Badu. It adds a big change in the format, but not a big change in archetypes necessarily. Like it just doesn't feel like a new format. It just feels like one card is getting added. And so we have Birmingham next weekend and Rio de Janeiro on the same weekend. So 2 regionals outside of the U.S. and then inside the U.S. we have San Antonio the following weekend. So those will be kind of the final non-Badoo regionals. And then after that, we start to have the Badoo format here in Merida. And then there is a Champions League coming up as well, which will be pretty hype. That's the same weekend as our special event in Puerto Rico, but that will have the new Battle Partners set. So that'll be our post-rotation format over in Japan. So that'll be definitely a fun one to watch. Then we have EUIC in London at the end of February. The ICs are great. Sadly, this year, the first 2 ICs of the year did not coincide with a new set release, which is really unfortunate because that's usually one of the most exciting things about the ICs, aside from the fact that they're a bigger production and all that. It is unfortunate this year that EUIC is kind of like landing in the middle of a format. Makes it a little less hype, but will be cool nonetheless. And then as we continue on through the Badoo format, we have a regional in Vancouver, the same weekend as regional Fortaleza in Brazil, then Stockholm, Brisbane, then another Champions League, which will probably be our NAIC format before we even get our post-rotation format. And then finally, by April, we're in Atlanta. We're post-rotation in the Journey Together format. And then we have a few more regionals throughout April and May until we lead up to NAIC in June. And I believe there's at least one more North American regional at some point in this window to be announced that we haven't really had announced yet. But I think the speculation is it's probably Portland, maybe sometime in May.
Yeah, I think that's what I was hearing.
So that's the schedule for the rest of the season. Max and I may have some exciting news on our end in a couple weeks about this schedule, because there were a lot of events that we were planning to go to, but we may have gotten news that we're able to travel to even more events here in the future, maybe even outside of the U.S., going to like maybe Stockholm and Bologna and those sorts of things. So that'll be really interesting if we're able to do that, but we'll definitely have that news maybe here in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Otherwise, we right now we are preparing for the San Antonio regionals. That'll be the next event that we both go to.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of San Antonio, we're all sort of preparing for that regional, as that is our next regional. So we have maybe some online tournament results to take a look at. Excuse me. Starting back here with the most recent late nights. Saw Reggie Drago still doing well, but we have started to see sort of the rise of Arcaludon. I think that's kind of the story of the format right now is, after the Champions League where Arcaludon won, it kind of raised a lot of people's interest in that deck. We've started to see people tinkering with it and starting to see a few results for it here and there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised to see it win that most recent Champions League. But it's got I think it's got some wheels. I think the deck is interesting. It has like any deck that uses Dialga, like Dialga, like Star Chronos is like one of the most flashy attacks in the Pokemon trading card game right now. Taking extra turn is such a powerful effect in the game. And so I think it, if it draws hot, like it can steamroll a lot of decks for sure.
Yeah. And there's a lot of support Pokemon being benched right now that have 220 HP or less. And so you can really take 4 prize turns pretty easily with a heavy gust, included in your deck. If you can get that Dialga powered up, you can take a 4 prize turn pretty easily in the game right now. On a lot of people's boards. And that seems like a winning strategy to me. The Arcaludon 2, just 300 HP on a stage 1 is really high. There's a lot of decks that can one-shot it, like Raging Bolt. There's a lot of other decks that are going to be careful about hitting into it because of that Relicanth. Reggie Drago can't one-shot a Arcaludon. Charizard can't initially one-shot an Arcaludon unless they set some damage up on it with a Dusknoir. Lugia can one-shot an Arcaludon, but they have to have the Rat ready to go, those sorts of things. So there's going to be a lot of people wary about hitting into that Arcaladon if they can't one shot it because of that Relicanth, and then like you said, Dialga coming in from the bench as well can cause a lot of problems. So it does seem like a strong deck. It certainly has a very good Regidrago matchup, which is the best deck in format. So can't really write it off when it's super duper favored into the best deck right now.
Yeah, I think when I'm preparing for a tournament such as the San Antonio Regionals, uh, a question I ask myself is, what decks do I want to beat? And I think going into a tournament right now and saying I want to beat Regidrago is usually a pretty good place to start. And so
Mm-hmm.
it makes a lot of sense that, yeah, people are looking towards this Arcaladon deck.
Yeah. And then the second late night, Arcaladon actually won with Miraidon and Giratina Lasso box in third. So kind of a crazy one here. But let's just take a brief look at this Arcaladon list. Pretty standard looking list here from what people have been running. Choosing the Jamming Tower over Pokestop. I know a lot of people have been running Pokestop as the stadium in here, but that Jamming Tower certainly helping you slow down decks like Charizard from using that Force Seal Stone, but also giving you a chance against Gardevoir, which is probably one of the worst matchups for Arcaladon unless you can kind of take those extra prizes with a Jamming Tower, shutting off the Bravery Charm to get a KO, and then Star Chronos to get another couple extra KOs in there as well.
Yeah, just being able to stop Force Seal Stone and TM Evo against some of these decks too. Just like that, like I said, if this deck like sets up and does and is able to execute its game plan, it's a pretty solid deck for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then that's really kind of been the story of these online tournaments. We're seeing Arcaladon in second here, Dragapult Iron Thorns in first, a couple other expected decks then, Drago, Gardevoir, Lugia, Charizard, those sorts of things. And then we have the Tournament of Doom down here, which, again, we see some Arcaladon, Charizard, Dragapult Iron Thorns is sort of still that deck that's out there in the format that can be really disruptive. Fairly low overall power level of a deck, but like can certainly, when it sets up and everything, it can be really disruptive to these decks
Definitely.
trying to use abilities and stuff. So I think that is about it for this week. We saw the Pumpka Weekly as well. Another Arcaladon in the top 8. Goldengo taking it down. I guess maybe the last thing to say about this format right now, Arcaladon doing well. But I also think there's a bit of fatigue going on. I think you see a lot of that on Twitter. So I think that is leading people to start investigating other decks just to try to spice things up and finding, maybe we could see some pretty crazy things coming out in Birmingham and in San Antonio. People experimenting. We did get sort of a surprise early on in this format with the Cloth Terrapagos deck that ended up doing well. And then we had the Dragapult Iron Thorns deck. And now we've got Arcaladon doing well, and maybe there's some more surprises in store as people start to experiment in this format as it sort of gets a little bit stale.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the end of this format, but always cool to see some decks pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's about all that we had for today, but we're excited to be back podcasting. We're hoping to get Austin back on here soon. It's been a busy time for all of us, but yeah, happy to be back at it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this week's pod. But Max, you want to take us out?
Yeah, thanks for tuning into the Zero Lab. Expect us to be uploading pretty regularly going forward. And thanks for the support, and we'll see you next time.
All right. See you next week.